Hello and welcome back to, for the very first time to the channel, I am William Gwyn, and as the title says, I'll be talking about 25 books that I intend to read in 2023. I have got myself in a terrible position where almost half of the books on my shelves I haven't read, and I always say that book buying and book reading are two completely separate hobbies, because surely I'm not the only one that when you just see a book online or in a bookstore physically, you just got to get it, even though you know you've already got a TBR pile which is threatening to crush you. But you still have to get it. It's the sacrifice of being a book reader and a book lover. But I have got a Kindle recently, and so hopefully I can save the shelves a bit but still get some lovely books read, and then the ones that I really enjoy I'll buy physically. So today I'm going to be talking about 25 books that I intend to read, if that is audible, because I count that as reading, physical or Kindle. So let's get right on into it. First up, I have 3 books I'm going to talk about together because they are book 1, 2 and 3 of a series, and this is Ship of Magic, The Mad Ship, and, give me a second, Ship of Destiny by Robin Hobb, and these are the components that make the Live Ship Traders trilogy, book 4 to 6 of The Realm of the Elderlings. I'm going to be conducting a huge reread of The Realm of the Elderlings in 2023, and I committed sacrilege. I always say when I talk about these, which is a lot, that when I originally read Realm of the Elderlings, I skipped over the Live Ship Traders and the Rainwild Chronicles because I just wanted the 3 other trilogies that follow the same characters. I won't name them because it may be spoilers, but I will be rectifying my mistakes. I'll be rereading the Farseid trilogy, and then I will get to Live Ship, and I cannot wait. Robin Hobb is a absolute, just possibly the best, or definitely top 3 authors in my regard when you're talking about character and craft and all of those aspects. And yeah, Fitz and the whole cast that you follow, Shay, Kettrick and Verity, Regal, they are all amazing. Night Eyes, you've got animal companions as well. What more can you ask for? And I've watched quite a few reviews of Ship of Magic and this series by My Book Reviews lately, also by Jimmy Nuts over at the Fantasy Network, and also on Daniel Green's channel he talked about Ship of Magic. And I feel like this is going to drive me to absolute rage, because there is a character who apparently you feel such hatred for that you can't get him out of your head even when you put this book down and you walk away from it. So yeah, I'm ready to be feeling a lot of anger whilst I'm reading these books, and they are not short, so it won't be a quick dose of anger. It will be more of a suspended period of rage. And so yeah, why wouldn't I want to read the Live Ship Traders? Next up, continuing my recent Westeros binge, I've read Fire and Blood, the prequel, which is what House of the Dragon, part of it is inspired by that. And then I've read the first 3 installments of A Song of Ice and Fire. So, of course, I will be continuing with that with A Feast for Crows, by George R.R. Martin, the 4th installment of A Song of Ice and Fire, otherwise known as A Game of Thrones. So the first 3 books I have absolutely adored, and I had heard quite a few spoilers, sadly, before I read them, but still they were absolutely wonderful reads. All 3 are my favourites of all time. But this is going to be the first book where I basically know nothing of what happens, so it'd be really interesting getting to that period of the show that I've not had spoilers for. And so, as I said, I'm really looking forward to A Feast for Crows. George R. R. Martin's writing just clicks with me. I think other than Tolkien, no one has managed to create such a vivid, living, breathing world. Maybe Malazan, I've not read that yet, or Wheel of Time. I read the first 3 books when I was 11 or 12, so it went a bit over my head and I've not revisited them, but I need to. But anyway, I was talking about books that I've read, and out of them, George R. R. Martin has probably created the 2nd greatest world in Westeros, and I'm looking forward to continuing that journey with A Feast for Crows. Next up, taking a little jump out of the fantasy genre, and I'm going to be reading The Death of Ivan Ilyich by Leo Tolstoy. I recently watched the film called Living, which was released in 2022, with Bill Nighy in, and it is about a man who he is reaching the end of his working career, and he is suddenly diagnosed with a terminal illness. So he knows he hasn't got long left to live, and it's about trying to find purpose, trying to enjoy what life of his he has left, and he's realising that he's spent so many years working and doing the things that society says may be important, but they've not enriched his life. And so it's very powerful. The film was absolutely incredible. It's going down in my top 10 films of all time, and Bill Nighy's performance was absolutely astounding. I'm not sure if it's out on the channel yet, but I'm doing a short review, so it'll be under a minute talking about Living. So hopefully if it is up, you do watch that, and if it's not, keep an eye out for it. So Living was inspired by the film Ikaru by Akira Kurosawa, and Ikaru was inspired by The Death of Ivan Ilyich. So it all links back to this by Leo Tolstoy. And so this is The Death of Ivan Ilyich and other stories in here. But at the moment, I will just be reading The Death of Ivan Ilyich. And hopefully I will return to the others. But for now, I'm just talking about The Death of Ivan Ilyich. And I'm really looking forward to read that. And that is the 5th book I'm talking about today. Next up, I'll be talking about two together, The House with the Golden Door by Elodie Harper, and also The Temple of Fortuna, book 3 of this series, the Wolf Den trilogy, which will be released in 2023. So I've read The Wolf Den, book 1, absolutely loved it. I got my brother to read it, I convinced him, he loved it, and then he read The House with the Golden Door, he overtook me, can't let that stand, but he said that this is even better and it is a contender for his book of the year for 2022. And I really am looking forward to reading this. I've had to show some discipline, and I thought I'd leave this a little while so it's closer to the release of 2023. I won't have the discipline to wait until the release, but I'll leave it a bit closer so then it's not as much of a toil to wait for that release. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading this. It's historical fiction set in Pompeii. We follow the character Amara, who is a slave forced to work in a brothel in Pompeii, as I said, and it's in AD, I think it's 74 AD. And so, a very interesting premise. It's very hard-hitting, brilliant prose, incredible characters. The cast here with such a varied array of personalities, and Elodie Harper makes sure that no one is left behind. There's always growth to every single character. And so yeah, I'm really looking forward to continuing the series with The House of the Golden Door and then The Temple of Fortuna. Now some more historical fiction, but this is military historical fiction, and this is Warlord by Bernard Cornwell, the 13th and final instalment of the Saxon stories. Wow, so this will be the last book of Uhtred, son of Uhtred, son of Uhtred of Bebbanburg, and I really am looking forward to finishing this. There have been highs and lows to the series, but more highs than lows, and some absolutely extraordinary moments. Bernard Cornwell is a brilliant writer. I think I've read 15 or 16 books by him, so he's one of, if not my most read authors on the planet, and I really am looking forward to this finale. I've heard from my brother Ed and Papa Gwyn both that this is ended brilliantly, that the conclusion is very satisfying and emotional and engaging, and Uhtred must go down in my top 10 characters of all time. While some of the surrounding cast can sometimes be a bit two-dimensional, Uhtred is absolutely brilliant. Every single book there is growth, he continues, and it really feels like something that, obviously, because it's 13 books, Bernard Cornwell has just done it brilliantly, seeing how someone ages and how it changes you, and the different phases in Uhtred's life. And as I said, I've loved it, and it'll be bittersweet finishing this series, but I'm really looking forward to reading Warlord. Now getting a bit of horror territory, and I'm going to be reading Dracula by Bram Stoker. I have to read the original Dracula, don't I? And I'm really looking forward to reading this. Papa Gwyn, one of Papa Gwyn's favourite books of all time, and I've heard brilliant things. I think Mike Book Reviews also loves Dracula, and yeah, it's just one that I've had on my shelf for a while, and I'm finally going to be taking it down and reading it in 2023. Not sure when, but this is one that is an absolute definite. So today, obviously, I read 107 books in 2022, and today I'm talking about 25, and so obviously, hopefully, I'll be reading more than that, but these are my definites. I thought I wouldn't just talk about absolutely everything. These are the ones that I will 100% be reading, and this is Dracula by Bram Stoker, and I'm really looking forward to reading it. Now on to some Ernest Hemingway, and this is A Farewell to Arms. I read For Whom the Bell Tolls by Ernest Hemingway, and I thought it was absolutely incredible. So that is set in 1940, and it's about the Spanish Civil War, guerrilla warfare, about a man called Robert Jordan, not the author of Wheel of Time, going and being tasked with destroying a bridge. And that is in Spain. I thought it was brilliantly written. A bit of romance, but done really well amongst the larger themes, and it's that idea of sacrifice and duty. And it seems to play a bit into what Gates of Fire talks about, that whilst the individuals, they are heavily flawed, it is very engaging and moving, that idea of sacrificing for yourself for something greater. And so, yeah, that is For Whom the Bell Tolls, and A Farewell to Arms has been very highly praised by many since this was released, and I'm really looking forward to reading it. I think I read the first chapter, but then I had exams, and so I just stopped and dedicated to that, and then I didn't come back to it for some weird, silly reason, but I'll be rectifying that, and I'll be reading A Farewell to Arms in 2023. Next up, I have Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. So this is the author of Ariadne and Electra, two hugely successful Greek retellings. And so this seems to be following what perhaps Pat Barker did with Silence of the Girls and the Women of Troy, looking at women in Greek retellings who are often left on the periphery, who are just left out of the story, left on the fringes and not given a dedicated time where they should be as such integral characters. And so these writers, Pat Barker, Jennifer Saint, seem to be trying to rectify that. Natalie Haynes, I read 1,000 Ships recently, which was good. I'll be having a review of that on the channel at some point. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked talking about Ariadne. And so yeah, I've heard brilliant things about this book. Obviously it's about the figure, the Greek figure of Ariadne. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading it. Apparently the prose is brilliant and it's a fresh Greek retelling, which it is hard with the Trojan retellings, the Arthurian legend, Greek retellings to find a fresh perspective, because these are tales that they have resonated with people throughout the ages, but they can sometimes get a bit dry because of how many retellings there are. So it is always a great thing when I can find one that is fresh, and I'm really hoping to find that in Ariadne. Now nearly halfway through, this is my 12th book, and it is Guards by Terry Pratchett. This is one of the Discworld books that is, from what I've heard, obviously I only engaged with a small portion of the reading community, but from what I've heard, I think Guards is the most highly rated book in the Discworld series, and that is a beloved series, so that says very, very high praise. I absolutely really enjoyed Mort, and that's the only book I've read by Terry Pratchett, other than Good Omens, which he co-authored with Neil Gaiman. But anyway, the only book in Discworld that I've read is Mort, and I really enjoyed it. I thought the ending was a little bit flatter, but Terry Pratchett writes in a way that when the plot does become a little bit weaker, it's weird. It doesn't even really seem to affect my enjoyment of the story, because the enjoyment comes from the characters, the witticisms, but also it's very thought-provoking. And so Terry Pratchett has a lot of layers here, and I love when authors use humour to really engage and eke out some of the other elements of humanity, and as I said, bring out those thought-provoking questions. A bit like Neil Gaiman does that sometimes, and so does Joe Abercrombie in The First Law. That is basically satirising everything about life, but this is a bit different. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading Guards by Terry Pratchett. Next up, I have The Lord of Demons by Evan Winter. So, a release date has not been set, but I do believe this will be out in 2023. Fingers crossed, anyway. The Rage of Dragons and The Fires of Vengeance by Evan Winter are two of my favourite books of all time. They're absolutely brilliant. What a force of nature he is as he sweeps through on his quest for vengeance. But it's not just about slashing and killing everyone in your path. It's very interesting seeing how sometimes you want to shake him because he is damaging what life he has left, because he's still pursuing this quest, as I said, for vengeance. And it's very interesting the way that he can be infuriating, but not in an annoying way, a way that is engaging and really immerses you in the story. It's not like when characters just make stupid decisions that really aggravate you. No, but this is infuriating, not aggravating. So yeah, there's a fine line there, but Evan Winter really struck it in my opinion anyway. And so yeah, that is the 13th book I'm talking about today, and hopefully The Lord of Demons comes out in 2023, because the day it is out, I will be reading it. Next up, I have more historical fiction, and that is Shogun by James Clavell. This is a highly rated book, standalone, about, I believe it's part of a series, but it can be read as a standalone. So I'm really looking forward to reading this. It's one of Ed, my brother's, who I run the Brothers Gwyn with. It's one of his favourite books of all time. And yeah, it's a chunky one, but I'm really looking forward to reading this. Apparently the characters are at the core of this story, and it's a very immersive read. And so yeah, I don't really know much more than that. I know that it's going to be brutal apparently, but apparently it is absolutely brilliant as well. And can I say apparently again? Well, apparently it's great, because I know next to nothing, and obviously when you're picking up books that you want to read, it's often because they're apparently really good. But I'm really hoping that Shogun fulfills my expectations and hits those high heights. Next up, I'll be talking about three of Cormac McCarthy's works, and that is his two recent releases, The Passenger and Stella Maris, and hopefully I'll have reviews of those up on the channel. When I'm done with them, I plan to read The Passenger in January and Stella Maris in February. And then I also plan to read All the Pretty Horses by Cormac McCarthy, one of his earlier works, and this is book one of his Border trilogy. So my brother read this, All the Pretty Horses, about 2 years ago, and he was disappointed because he had just read Blood Meridian, and they are very different styles, and he was kind of expecting more of the same. But he said he reread it recently and then read Book 2, The Crossing, and he said they are both really great reads, just as long as you go into it not expecting Blood Meridian. And you kind of know that with Cormac McCarthy, because every book of his is written in such a different style, where usually with authors, if you like one of their books, you can say with some sense of assurity that you will enjoy most of their other works. Whereas with Cormac McCarthy, you might absolutely love The Road, for example, and it might be your favourite book of all time, but then you might not like any of his other books. But I really love how he's got such a range of writing styles, but he still has that inner McCarthy-ness at the core. And so yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading these and All the Pretty Horses. And then on my Kindle, I'll be reading Jade City by Fonda Lee. And so this is book 1 of the Greenbone saga. And I started reading it through the Kindle app on my laptop, but the screen was just giving me a headache, so I had to stop. But I was really enjoying the story. But now I've got a Kindle, that will change, and I'll be, well, me enjoying it won't change, hopefully, but not being able to read it has changed. I'll be able to read it on the Kindle, and hopefully my enjoyment will continue. This has been related as the fantasy-inspired version of The Godfather, and so I'm really looking forward to reading this. The Godfather 1 and 2 are 2 of my favourite films. We won't talk about number 3. But the first 2 are 2 of my favourite films of all time, and of course, I am looking forward to reading Jade City, especially when about a year ago, it seemed like every single BookTube and reviewer was raving about this series, and I felt left out. So yeah, I need to join the gang, and so hopefully I will be very soon. And then talking about Jade City, I'm going to actually copy Mike's book reviews. I'm going to read Jade City and hopefully the whole series, and then I'll read the GOAT, The Godfather. I've never read it before, but I'll be reading the book which inspired the film. So not everyone knows that it was a book first. So yes, it was, and it'd be really interesting seeing what it was like in that book form. I think Mike's book review said that he really agreed on what the film took out, but it's always great in a book to be able to have that extra character depth, know more about these characters, and he said it's brilliant. He absolutely loved it. One of his favourite reads of 2022, so I'm really, really looking forward to reading it. And then I've put this as one, even though they are it's more than one book, but I'm going to be reading The Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. So I have never read these, and that is a borderline crime, I think, to not have read The Chronicles of Narnia as a fantasy reader. I could have my fancy reading license stripped from me, so I need to read these swiftly, and I'll be starting hopefully in the first third of 2023. I think some of them are quite small books. I'll be able to get through them quite quickly. If anything opens up, then I can just slot them right in there. And so yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading these. Papa Gwyn read The Magician's Nephew to me when I was a child, and I really enjoyed it, but I just never went on to read the rest, which was very wrong of me. But again, this is a video about rectifying my past mistakes, and Narnia is continuing that tradition. I will also be attempting to read in 2023 The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. So this has been a phenomenon in not just the fantasy genre, but throughout. It's one that has kind of transcended genre in many people's opinions. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading this after all the hype. It's just, I've got that curiosity, and I do like the premise. There wasn't too much about it where you don't really know what it's about. You know a bit, it's about someone who can't be seen by anyone around them, and then suddenly someone does. But other than that, have no idea what the other 400 or so pages will be filled with. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It's that curiosity aspect which has really drawn me to The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. It's a great title, really good title as well. And after hearing great things from so many people, it's one I just have to pick up. I will also be reading The Tyranny of Faith by Richard Swan, which is released in February 2023. Hopefully, I can get access to an early copy of this, and if not, I'll be reading it very soon after its release. But I will definitely be reading The Tyranny of Faith. I really enjoyed Book 1, The Justice of Kings, which was released in 2022. It really brings that kind of lore aspect to fantasy, which I found really interesting. It wasn't overdone, but it added that mystery element and some very nice intricacies that I've really enjoyed following. And yeah, it's just nice seeing something fresh in the fantasy genre. Every time someone brings something unique, I really enjoy it. And yeah, it's just keeping the genre alive, isn't it? You don't want to be just reading the same thing again and again. So yeah, as I said, I'm really looking forward to reading Tyranny of Faith, and another release of 2023 I'm looking forward to getting to. Talking about releases of 2023, I hope Empire of the Vampire Book 2, the sequel to Empire of the Vampire, I'm not sure what Book 2 will be called. I hope that will be released in 2023. A few months ago, Jay Kristoff said that it has been finished, and so I believe it will be released in 2023, and I cannot wait to read it. Empire of the Vampire was, if not my favourite book of 2022, definitely in the top 3. Gabriel de Leon is an incredible main character in my opinion. He is very complex. At times you really don't like him, but then as the story goes on, you really get a glimpse into his past, his childhood, his formative years, and everything he's been through, and who can blame him for why he is so worn down and cynical now. And so yeah, I thought it was a really great main character, and the story as a whole, it just felt iconic. Like every 10 pages or so there was something that happened that I was like, wow, that must be one of the greatest moments in any book I've ever read. And yeah, so it just had that iconic factor. Sorry, my light just decided to randomly die there, even though the battery's not gone, so I'm not sure what's happening there. So the lighting may be a little bit different, but anyway, let's carry on. I've got 2 books left, and one of them is Toni Morrison's Beloved, and so this is a book that tackles racial prejudice, but also the power of the past, both on us as individuals, our influences, who we become, and also how we make decisions, even on events that happened years ago, but also how the past affects us collectively as a people. And so yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading this, and I know it'll be very hard hitting, so I need to be in a certain headspace before I read it, but it's one that I've been meaning to get to for a long time. And to finish this list off, I'm going to finish it off with some non-fiction, and this is called War, How Conflict Shaped Us. So this sounds to be really interesting. I read the first few pages about a year ago, and I was hooked. It's so interesting looking at how war throughout millennium, so it goes from the ancient times, and then it's going to take us into the modern period. I believe it's chronological throughout the whole book. It may, from time to time, stray from that structure, but I don't know. I haven't read it. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing this, an analysis of how war has shaped us, both in terms of our mindset, our hegemonic values, how they've evolved, but also in terms of land and also the current political stature of the world, and also how that has evolved. So yeah, it sounds like it's a very interesting premise, and I'm looking forward to reading this. It's been on my shelf for a while, and I just need to make myself read more books that are on my shelves instead of buying hundreds upon hundreds of new books. So yeah, that's going to be one of my many goals for 2023, and that is War, How Conflict Shaped Us by Margaret Macmillan. And so there we go, there are 25 books that I intend to read in 2023. I'm really looking forward to getting to each and every one of these. As I said earlier, I read 107 books in 2022, and so hopefully I can read even more in 2023. But these are books that I feel pretty certain that I will read every single one of. I think I'll have a part 2 of this, 25 more books, so then there'll be 50, and then I'll have room for 57 others to throw into the mix. So yeah, hopefully you really enjoyed this video. Let me know what you intend to read in 2023. What are your priorities, even if you won't be reading at the beginning of the year? What do you have planned throughout? I'm really looking forward to engaging with some read-alongs as well, which I'll talk about in the next video. I'll give a little clue, and one of them is Imperium by Robert Harris. I'll hopefully be reading that along with Library of Alexandria, and he's doing a read-along on his Discord. So yeah, do join that if you want to, but I'll be reading Imperium and all that. I'll talk about that in the next video. I'm getting ahead of myself. But yeah, so that is 25 books that I want to read in 2023. Stay safe.